Hello and welcome to Module 2 of the STAT training. You're back with Andrew and Heather. And for Module 2, we're going to be talking about communication in the selling process. So when we talk about communication, we're really referencing three different types of communication. Why don't you tell us about them, Heather?
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. So there are three types of communication. Number one being body language. The second one being tone of voice. And the third being words. So Andrew, could you give us an example of body language?
Sure. So this is a real life example. I walked into a hotel and the associate had their arms crossed across their chest, hip cocked to the side, staring down at their cell phone. And I got to tell you, when I walked into that hotel, the first impression I got was that the associate was not engaged and they didn't want to be there. They weren't interested in me, and it felt a little standoffish. So when we talk about body language, we want to be cognizant of how the guest is viewing us when they walk into our lobby and they have that arrival experience.
Absolutely. I can see how that wasn't a very warm welcome.
No, not at all. So we just want to make sure we're standing up straight. We don't have our cell phone out at the front desk, and we're greeting the guests when we see them.
Great. And can you give us an example of tone of voice?
Absolutely. I was at another hotel and I walked up to the front desk and the desk clerk said, "Can I help you, sir?" Which I found to be very abrasive. Now, if they had said, "Can I help you, sir?" That's a very different tone of voice and it conveys a very different meaning.
Absolutely. I can see where you felt that abrasiveness at once when they said that to you, but then when they said it in that nice, pleasant tone, it was like that warm welcome that you wanted from the very beginning.
Exactly.
All right. And the third type of communication is words. Give us an example of words.
Absolutely. So this was actually my mistake when I was brand new to the front desk. I had a guest in front of me and I said, "I'm not able to find your reservation. Let me check Marcia." And for those of you who are not Marriott, from the Marriott side, Marcia is our reservation center. And the guest kind of looked at me like I had six heads and asked me who Marcia was and why she wasn't here at the front desk to help her, to help the guest. So when we talk about words, we want to avoid using jargon or hotel slang. We want to be clear and concise and use the appropriate words to convey what we're trying to communicate to the guest.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to jump over to the next slide and talk about each of these areas and what percentage is most important to us. So impactful communication. So which of these three do people pay attention to the most, do you think?
So based on my example, I'm going to go ahead and guess that tone of voice is the most important because the way I felt in that situation. Is that right, Heather?
Well, you know, Andrew, I know why you say that and how that made you feel, and I can see why you think that. But actually, it's body language. So let me just unveil these percentages. 55% is body language. Are you surprised by that?
I am a little surprised by that, but, you know, thinking back to the other example I gave with the associate who had their arms crossed over their chest, you know, and just really didn't want to be there, that really did set how the entire rest of the conversation was going to go.
Absolutely. So the actual words coming out of your mouth have a much smaller impact on people's perception of you and how you say it, while your body language and tone has a much greater impact. So just keep that in mind. I think that's very interesting. All right, the 3 P's of tone of voice. So we've got pitch, we have pace, and projection. So pitch, what do you think that means, Andrew?
I think that pitch is how high or how low that you talk. So I could be talking to you like this, Heather, or I could be talking like this. So when we talk about pitch, that's how we want to talk. I know a lot of times I've heard associates where they'll raise their voice at the end of a sentence as if what they're saying was a question when it's really not.
Yes.
So we want to be cognizant of that. We want to make sure we're talking in a normal pitch and not too high or too low.
Absolutely. And then pace, what do you think they mean by pace?
Well, I think pace is really referencing how quickly or how slowly you talk to the guest. So I think we all know someone out there who just talks a mile a minute and all of their words get jumbled up together and it's really hard to understand. So we want to make sure that we're talking slowly and clearly to the guest, not too slowly, but just at a normal pace to the guest so that they can understand what we're saying.
Absolutely, because I have been in a situation before where I've spoken too quickly and I should have paused to allow the guest to speak so then I could understand better their needs as well.
Exactly.
All right, so projection. So what does projection mean to you, Andrew?
So when I think about projection, I think about how loudly or how softly I'm talking to the guest. When I have the guest in front of me at the front desk, I don't want to be shouting at them. But on the same token, I don't want to be talking too softly either. I want to be talking in a voice loud enough for them to hear what I'm saying and understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So thank you for those, Andrew. And so when you're speaking to the guest, please keep in mind the 3 P's of tone of voice. All right. In hospitality, we have a lot of words and a lot of jargons, such as Marcia, as you mentioned, and GSS and STAT and LNRs, and the list goes on. So we want to stay away from using the jargon when we're talking to our guests because they don't necessarily understand what those acronyms mean. So keep that in mind.
And Heather, I think that's a good point. Like we talked about in a couple of slides earlier, the impact of our words is the least, but it still impacts overall perception and overall ability to communicate. So although your words are the least important, it is still important.
Absolutely.
Next, we're going to talk about face-to-face communication. So Heather, what are some things we need to consider when we're talking to a guest face-to-face?
Well, we've highlighted some of this with body language. So when people are approaching us, we're the first impression there at the front desk, so keep that in mind. And what are the benefits to us? What are the benefits to us of the customer coming to the hotel? So the customer is asking for help in initiating the potential sale. We can sell, book, and confirm, shorten the sales process. We can show our beautiful hotel and explain the benefits of each of our features. So what else do you think?
Well, like we talked about a little bit earlier, with body language being such a large impact of overall communication, when we have that face-to-face interaction, we can really wow them, and we can really tell that story, whatever we're trying to communicate, a little bit better through the use of body language. Now, when we talk on the phone, things kind of get flipped on its head, right? Because body language can no longer be the most important factor. So what are some things that we look at when we're talking on the phone? We really just have the tone of voice. So again, that's how high-pitched or low-pitched and how we say things, and also our words. So Heather, any guesses on what percentage over the phone is tone of voice and what percentage is words for as far as overall communication?
Oh, goodness. I'm thinking words. I'm thinking words might be stronger than tone of voice. So I'm going to guess 50%, but let's just see what the actual percentage is.
Well, you were very close. So tone of voice is actually 70%, and the words that we use are 30%.
Oh, wow.
So you can see when body language is taken out of the equation, the words that we use are all that much more important, as is the tone of voice.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew and I hope that you've gotten something out of this communication with face-to-face communication as well as over the phone. And we thank you for joining us today. And please join us for Module 3.